Shri Guru Shri Jataha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagra Jatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam. Did you start it yet? Yeah. Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam. Vancha kalpataru bhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo mahabhadanyaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratishe Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Bhaktya Vihina Aparadha Lakshay Kshiptascha Kamari Taranga Madhye Kripa Mai Tvam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam. Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most beloved worshipable Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, Asto Tarasata Sri Srila, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. And then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj. And Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And my Dandavat Pranams to the lotus feet of all of my Shri Shri Rupa Nuga Gaudiya Guru Varga. And my Dandavat Pranams to all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. So we are studying Srila Sachidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur's beautiful, extensive commentary on the 2 verses from Sri Upadeshamrita. What are those 2 verses? Verse 2 and verse 3. And these 2 verses are telling the 6 activities, the 6 things that are unfavorable for developing bhakti, and the 6 items that are very favorable for developing bhakti. The whole Upadeshamritam is the process, the actual process of attaining the highest Krishna Prem that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to give to the living entities in this Dhanya Kali Yuga, fortunate Kali Yuga. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is actually the one who spoke this Upadeshamritam to his own disciples when he was in Jagannath Puri at the end of his manifest pastimes. And there, in that assembly on the bank of the ocean there, on the shore of the ocean, when he spoke this, then Srila Rupa Goswami was present. And Srila Rupa Goswami took those essential instructions that emanated directly from the lotus mouth of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he composed 11 verses. And those 11 verses, our acharyas have told us, they are the life and soul of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, followers of Rupa Goswami. He condensed all of those instructions into these 11 shlokas. So it is told by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that the devotees should wear this Upadeshamrita like a necklace always around one's neck. So we have been studying this commentary of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. We already studied the Upadeshamrita, which was presented by our beloved Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We studied all 11 verses by him and his commentary. Then we also studied the version, well, Srila Prabhupada's Nectar of Instruction. He gave it that name, Sri Upadeshamrita. Then we also studied the small booklet which was published by our Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj as Sri Upadeshamrita. And there were 3 various commentaries there, very, very authorized on our Rupanuga Acharyas. One commentary is by Radharaman Das Goswami, who was in the line of the great exalted pujaris who had been appointed to serve the Sri Radharaman deity by Gopal Bhatta Goswami and their family line within the first, 100 years or so after the disappearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then this commentary, he wrote the first commentary, which is accepted by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and all of our Rupanuga Acharyas. So Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, he included that commentary. This is brief, not very extensive commentary on the 11 verses. And then he also included the commentary which was written by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and then also the commentary which was written by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in that one small booklet. But in addition to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's very concise commentary, he also wrote 12 articles. He wrote this separately, and it was published in his newsletter that he had, a regular newsletter that he had, and published many of his articles. Sajjana Toshini was the name of that newsletter, or like a small magazine booklet, regularly published. So he published these 12 articles that he wrote. And what are they? 6 of those articles are commenting on each of the 6 items of the second verse. Atyahara prayashascha prajalpo niyamagraha janasangascha lolyamcha shadvir bhakti vinashiti. The 6 unfavorable items for bhakti that will destroy bhakti. He wrote one article for each and every item there of the 6. And then that was the second verse of Upadeshamrita. Then the third verse, which is what we are currently studying, which is describing the 6 favorable activities, which if someone follows them, then sadvira bhakti prasiddhyati. Bhakti will be enhanced. Bhakti will be benefited so much. We are trying to develop bhakti. We are in the line of bhakti. So bhakti is our ultimate goal, which eventually will transform into Krishna prema, and a very specific type of Krishna prema in the line of Rupa Goswami. So the third shloka, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also wrote an individual article for each of those 6 items, favorable items. So that verse is telling Utsahan Nishchayat Dhairyat Tat Tat Karma Pravartanat Sangatyaga Satovrite Sadbhira Bhakti Prasiddhyati. So Rupa Goswami has listed these 6 activities which will be very beneficial. If someone follows them in their life, they will be very beneficial and will help them to develop pure bhakti. So we've been studying the first item, which is called Utsahan. What is the meaning of Utsaha?
Enthusiasm.
That's correct. Utsaha. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's explanations are actually completely, totally amazing. How he goes into such depth, such detail. If he had not written these articles, we would only have more of a limited understanding, but he showed us. And actually, we've been reading them and discussing them, but really we'd have to read all of these articles another time, and maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 times more to really have full comprehension and also to fix it in our memory. So this is a very beneficial exercise, these classes that we've been having. And we're inviting all the devotees through this Facebook Live that they can also hear and they can also benefit from the readings of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's commentary and our discussion of that, churning of what he is telling. So now, just to remind a little bit, yesterday we began this first chapter of this other half of the book. And we've been discussing Utsaha. We've been discussing Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's explanation. What is Utsaha? What is it? And it's just to say enthusiasm. That's true. Utsaha means enthusiasm. But unless you study his very elaborate explanation of it, you cannot fully understand. So we also discussed in this brief class that we had yesterday on the same topic, Utsaha, that there are different types of spiritual practices. There is Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. The conduct of a Bhakti Yogi is where we are now. Really, probably what I would have to do is go over every section that we've read 2 or 3 times in a row. Because actually, right now, I just want to go back and read what we read yesterday and then try to make that sink in. But we don't have that much time. So, I'm just going to summarize a little bit at the end, just before continuing on. So, those who have understood the utter insignificance of material activities, having attained realization of spiritual activities, they are indifferent to all kinds of material activities, but still they accept performing a limited amount of prescribed action meant only to aid in their spiritual awakening, but they remain unattached to those activities. In bhakti, one becomes free from attachment to material sense objects that one deliberates on spiritual subject matters. One becomes free from attachment to material sense objects to the extent that one deliberates on and discusses spiritual subject matters. Freedom from attachment to material sense objects is but a byproduct of bhakti. The symptoms of bhakti yogis are mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 20th chapter, verse 27 and 28, as follows. We read this yesterday, I'm reading it again, and then we'll move on. Jata Shraddho Mat Kathasu. Krishna is speaking this in the 11th canto. Who is he speaking it to? Uddhava. 11th canto, many chapters. Krishna himself, just before leaving the planet, at the end of his pastimes, he met Uddhava privately and spoke these instructions to him. Most of the 11th canto is Uddhava Gita. It's also called the Uddhava Gita, just like there's the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna spoke to Arjuna. There's also the Uddhava Gita. It is very necessary to study this. Our Gurudev went over some parts, he covered it. But one has to read that and very deeply try to comprehend, because he said, after reading the 10th canto, you must read the 11th canto. Otherwise, he said, you may fall down. You must read the 11th canto. So essential instructions. And directly from Krishna about bhakti is so much pertaining to bhakti. And he's speaking to Uddhava, who was also present when Uddhava was hearing. Do you remember? Maitreya Rishi, who later on spoke a lot of the topics of the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Maitreya Rishi was also there, you see. And later on, who did Maitreya Rishi speak to? What he heard in the presence of Krishna speaking to Uddhava. Maitreya Rishi later spoke these instructions of the 3rd canto to who? Vidura. Yes. So, here Krishna is telling, the symptoms of bhakti yogis are mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam as follows. Jata Shraddho Mat Vinna Sarva Karmasu Veda Dukatmakan Kaman Prityage Pyanishwaraha Tato Bhajeta Mam Prita Shraddhalur Dridha Nishchaya Jushamanas Chatan Kaman Dukkodar Kamstragarhayan. A sadhak who has developed faith in narrations about me and who is disgusted with all kinds of fruitive activity, he may still be unable to give up material enjoyment and the desire for such enjoyment. Knowing that such so-called pleasures are actually sources of misery, he should condemn himself while attempting to enjoy them. Thereafter, in due course of time, he may be able to worship me with love, faith, and fixed determination. Those two verses are so important. Dukkodar Kamstragarhayan. So what's being told here?
One may have material desires, there may be impressions in his heart, even though Krishna's fixed that as his goal, still he has an impure heart. So because of that, he may engage in some sinful activity, but understanding that it's wrong, he condemns himself for it.
Well, one thing is not necessarily talking about sinful activity. It can also be dharmic. What it's talking about is that devotee, that sadhaka, who has developed faith in the narrations about me, Krishna's telling, and who is actually disgusted with all kinds of fruitive activity. He's developed faith, and he's also disgusted. He knows that they all lead to their sources of misery. He knows this. He may still be unable to give up material enjoyment and the desire for such enjoyment. It doesn't necessarily mean it's sinful, but it's just the desire for sense gratification. He may be unable still, although he knows that, and although he has faith. And he is also aware, knowing that such so-called pleasures are actually sources of misery. He knows this. So, what is Krishna's advice to such a devotee? He should condemn himself while attempting to enjoy them. And thereafter, in due course of time, he may be able to worship me with love, faith, and fixed determination. Very hopeful, what Krishna is telling here. It will be managed by Krishna. So then Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying that kam means what? Desire. Kam. Actually, lust. So kam, desire, it gives rise to karma. If someone has kam, material desires, what does that give rise to? That he will perform karma in order to satisfy his material desires, fruit of activity. Then he says, nirveda. Nirved means disregard of the material objects. Disinterest, disregard of the material objects. What does that give rise to? Jnana. Knowledge. Jnana. So lust, kam, desire, gives rise to karma. And karma in this context means fruit of activity. That's why people are called karmis in the material world. Because most of them, they're only simply working to satisfy their senses and the senses of their extended self, family members and so forth, right? That's their objective. And they feel that they're successful if they can do that. Actually, this is a step on the pathway. We've been reading all about it in a lot of these articles, that this is a step. It's a necessary step. But they have to also come eventually, not just to the point of karma kanda, but karma yoga. This is what he's told, karma yoga. We're now acting out of duty and giving the results to Krishna. That's called karma yoga. That's why the beginning of Bhagavad Gita has so much discussion about this. But in order to do that, one has to have some atma-gyan. Atma-gyan. So, gradually, that person who's not performing bhakti, but he's performing just karma kanda, right? Trying to enjoy. But eventually what happens is nirveda. There is disregard of material objects. And that which comes, it gives rise to jnana. Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Govinda Jiva Kirtana. Then, there are 3 steps here. At the next point, Shraddha, faith in Bhagavan. Shraddha means faith in Bhagavan. And this gives rise to bhakti. Without Shraddha, they cannot do bhakti. Have to be, Shraddha is the first step. So, Kam gives rise to karma, and then Nirved, the disregard of the material objects, gives rise to Gyan, and Shraddha, faith in Bhagavan, gives rise to bhakti. Now, the conduct of a bhakti yogi. Here is the title of this section now. The conduct of a bhakti yogi. A person in whom faith has arisen. A person in whom faith has arisen is naturally disinterested in the performance of all. So we can understand that if someone is very interested still in performing material activity, then his faith has not really arisen. Or it's just very, very faint, minute. Because when faith has arisen, the person is naturally disinterested in the performance of all material activity. He performs prescribed duties, karma, to the extent that they are favorable for his faith in Bhagavan. That's all. And they're prescribed duties. One cannot perform bhakti sadhana without the body. So you need a body.
Question.
Yeah.
If someone accepts Krishna as the ultimate goal, the Supreme Lord, the source of everything, is that considered faith, just accepting Krishna?
Yeah.
Okay.
If someone believes that.
Believes that, that's...
Yes. Yeah. But that gives rise to bhakti. So if a person says, yes, I believe Krishna is God, but we don't see him performing the activities of bhakti, then it's not real Shraddha. You see? There's a lot of persons, but their primary goal is still sense gratification. They haven't real proper knowledge yet. They haven't yet attained true faith. It may be that they don't have a lot of bhakti unmukha sukriti from previous lives, and they haven't yet availed themselves of sadhusanga, but they have some belief. There are a lot of people like that. You can find all different types of them, you know. That's good. It's not going to get you very far, though. Yeah. It'll get you eventually, after suffering, by trying to satisfy your gross material desires again and again, then some nirvade may arise, you know, disinterest. And then he can go forward. But here we're talking about a person who is actually, his faith has arisen. So he's naturally disinterested in the performance of all material activity. He performs prescribed duties, karma, right? He performs that to the extent that they are favorable for his faith in Bhagavan. So one cannot perform bhakti sadhana without the body. How can the body be maintained if one renounces ambition and activities that cause sorrow, but they are necessary for maintaining one's life? How is it possible to perform sadhana if the body is destroyed? Therefore, people in general should consider such acts which yield misery to be meager and contemptible, and they should tolerate their results without attachment. You see? While performing such fruitive acts for the sake of maintaining their life, they ought to continue to worship me with fixed faith by bhakti yoga. Even though they think like this, people in general should consider such acts which yield misery to be meager, contemptible, but they should tolerate their results without attachment. And while performing such fruitive acts for the sake of maintaining their life, they ought to continue to worship me with fixed faith by bhakti yoga. Those who enjoy the fruits of their material activities, meaning worldly sensory pleasures, those who enjoy the fruits of their material activities, worldly sensory pleasures, with great honor, they are called karma asakta. Karma asakta means they are attached to karma, fruitive action. They enjoy the fruits of their material activities, the worldly sensory pleasures, with great honor. So they are called karma asakta. Those who nurture a mood of contempt for the fruits of material activities, and they engage in such activities with a sense of honor for the propensity to render devotional service to the Lord, they are called unattached, anasakta. Again, those who nurture a mood of contempt for the fruits of material activities, and they engage in such activities with a sense of honor for what? For the propensity to render devotional service to the Lord. They are called unattached, anasakta. Although detached from worldly activities, they perform the activities of bhakti with great enthusiasm. You see? So they're detached from worldly activities, but they have great enthusiasm to perform the activities of bhakti. Now, he's going to explain the sequence of progression for bhakti sadhakas. Here's the sequence. He's going to be quoting from the from Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 20th chapter, same chapter, verses 29, 30, and 35. Yes. So the sequence of progression for the practitioner of Bhagavad Bhakti is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam. Proktena bhakti yogena bhajato masakrin mune kama hridaya nashyanti sarve mai hridistite bidyate hridaya grantish chidyante sarva samshaya kshiyante chasya karmani mai driste akilatmani nairapeksham param prahur nikshreyasam analpakam tasman nirashisho bhaktir nirapekshasya me bhavet. So these are verses 29, 30, and 35. Krishna is telling, in this way, I come and I sit in the heart of the sadhak, who incessantly performs bhajan of me by following bhakti yoga as I have instructed. After I seat myself there, all the material desires in his heart are destroyed, along with his samskaras, his past impressions. At that time, the knot in his heart is broken. All of his doubts are cut to pieces, and the desire to perform karma is completely destroyed. Such a state of indifference is the living entity's greatest and topmost auspiciousness. That's the translation of those 3 verses. You can see how important this 11th canto is. So the conclusion is that making any other endeavors to eradicate the disease of lust, kam, and the ignorance of vidya situated in the heart, any of these other endeavors, they are pointless. Again, the conclusion is that making any other endeavors to eradicate the disease of lust, kam, and the ignorance of vidya that is situated in the heart, it is pointless to make any endeavor. By adopting bhakti yoga in the form of cultivating service to Bhagavan, then the jiva's ignorance, his avidya, his inauspiciousness, kala, his lust, kam, and the results of karma, all his doubts and material bondage, they are eradicated by the mercy of Bhagavan. By adopting bhakti yoga in the form of cultivating service to Bhagavan, the jiva's ignorance, his avidya, his inauspiciousness, kala, his lust, kama, the results of all karma, all his doubts and his material bondage are eradicated by the mercy of Bhagavan. But this does not happen through jnana yoga or karma yoga. It doesn't happen. Shuddha bhakti. What does Shuddha bhakti mean?
Pure.
That's right. The word Shuddha means pure. So Shuddha bhakti, therefore, arises in the heart when one renounces all types of desires and hopes and becomes totally free from any expectations. Nirapeksha, it's called. Again, Shuddha bhakti, therefore, arises in the heart when one renounces all types of desires and hopes and becomes totally free from any expectations. That's called to be nirapeksha. Now comes the next subsection titled Bhajana Kriya. Bhajana Kriya, devotional practice, is of 2 types. Resolute, nishtita, and wavering, anishtita. So here, these terms we've heard before. Nishtita bhakti and anishtita bhakti. He's trying to do devotional practice, but with unsteadiness. But when he comes to Nishtita Bhakti, then resolute. It is improper to become discouraged. It is improper to become discouraged by thinking, we do not possess the capacity to destroy the results of karma. That's improper, to become discouraged by thinking like this, that we do not possess the capacity to destroy the results of karma. It is necessary for the faith of the sadhaka to be invested with enthusiasm from the very beginning of his practice of bhakti. There are two types of bhajana kriya. Nishtita, which means resolute, and anishtita means wavering. When nishta arises while performing bhajan with faith, shraddha, in the association of sadhus, then that bhajana kriya is called nishtita. We can all remember how we tasted and experienced this in the association of sadhus with so much faith and shraddha. So that type of bhajana kriya is called nishtita. As long as nishtita bhajana kriya has not arisen, then anishtita bhajana kriya, the unsteady practice of bhajan, it prevails. There are 6 stages evident in anishtita bhajana kriya. Oh, now here comes those 6. We've heard this before. What are they? Utsahamayi. Remember? This is also mentioned in Madhurya Kadambini and various places. There are 6 unsteady types of bhajan. So, the first one is called Utsahamayi, initial enthusiasm. It'll probably be explained in more detail, but just to tell a little bit about it, Utsaha means what? Enthusiasm, right? Utsaha nishchaya dhairya. So here it says Utsahamayi, initial enthusiasm. Initial, but not complete. So the example is given by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur to explain this first stage of unsteady bhajan. He gives the example of a small child. And this small child, now is his time for his parents to bring him for the very first day that he's going to go to school. Probably he's like 5 years old, right? Kindergarten. Or first grade, whatever. But this is his first day. And he's very excited. He's very enthusiastic. And he goes into the school. So then he goes through his day with his new classmates and his teacher, and he's enthusiastic when he comes home. And he says to his parents, "Oh, Mommy, Daddy, today I became a great scholar. I became a great scholar." "Oh, you did? Oh, yes, I learned how to write A, B, and C." "Oh, you did so well," the parents are telling him and encouraging him, right? But then after a few days, he comes back from school and he's not so exuberant. And what is that? Well, now he understands that he will take time, and he'll have to be perseverant and all that. So that's the example Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives of Utsahamayi. We know in Krishna consciousness, persons can be very enthusiastic, but then it starts to wane. And then the second stage is called Gana Tarala. Gana Tarala means thick and thin. Sometimes thick, sometimes thin. It means a waving resolve to perform devotional practice, like waves, sometimes thick, sometimes. There's some resolve there, but it's sometimes thick, sometimes thin. Next comes the number 3, Vyudha Vikalpa. And Vyudha Vikalpa means that one is oscillating between resolve and doubt. Resolve and doubt. Vyudha Vikalpa. Each one of these has a whole explanation. So, number 4 is called Vishaya Sangara. Vishaya Sangara. It means battling sense pleasure. Vishaya Sangara. Because even in bhakti, so much sense pleasure is coming. But battling against that, it's called Vishaya Sangara. Then number 5 is called Niyamakshama. Niyama means rules and regulations. Akshama, it means the inability to uphold vows that are favorable for one's devotional service. May take vow, but can't. And finally, number 6, Taranga Rangini. So Taranga means waves, and Rangini means to sport. Sporting in the waves. What is he sporting in the waves of? The conveniences afforded by the practice of bhakti. He's sporting, Taranga Rangini. So he's taking pleasure in the fact that, oh, I'm enjoying so much. I have nice facilities. So many things are coming. Labh, puja, pratishta, like this. So that is the summary of the Anishtita Bhajan. Anishtita Bhajana Kriya. Now he has a section titled, this will be almost the end of this chapter. This subtitle is called The Offense of Inattentiveness. Inattentiveness. We've all heard that before, haven't we? When we recite the what? The 10 offenses to chanting Namaparads. And then we also hear, it is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. So what does he have to say here? The offense of inattentiveness. The Hari Bhakti Vilas. You know what Hari Bhakti Vilas is? We should all know what this book is. Prabhupada didn't have time to give that. But it's been translated into English. Sanatana Goswami. What he heard from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in 2 months. This is one of the main literatures that he wrote. And it's a guidebook for all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And it's especially written for those who are in the Varnashram, and especially persons who are like Brahmanas, what mantras they should chant, what rites they should perform, but everything's there. So it's very heavy literature. So in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, Hari Bhakti Vilas considers pramad to be a type of nam aparad. In the same scripture, the word pramad is defined as inattentiveness. In Sri Harinam Chintamani, that's a book written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, right? And it's kind of like the sequel of the Jaiva Dharma. And what's in that book? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's conversation with Namacharya Haridas Thakur. And Mahaprabhu wants to hear from Haridas Thakur, like he heard from Ramananda Rai. And Haridas Thakur explains in very great detail all about the 10 aparads to the holy name, because he's the acharya of chanting the holy name. Yes, so in Harinam Chintamani, this inattentiveness has been divided into 3 categories. Number 1, indifference. Indifference. That's called udasinata. Udasinata. The second one of type of inattentiveness, inertness, jarata. We heard that term the other day also. Inert, jarata. And the third type of inattentiveness, distraction, vikshepa, distraction. So one cannot perform Hari Bhajan at all until one is free of these 3 types of inattentiveness. There we go. Got to work on that, right? Gonna have to work on that. Because otherwise, we will not be able to perform Hari Bhajan at all. Is it actual Hari Bhajan, what we're doing, if we're not working on becoming free from this? Not really. Facsimile. Not the real thing. So one cannot perform Hari Bhajan at all until one is free of these 3 types of inattentiveness. And although all other types of aparads, they may have been eliminated. Although all other types of aparads may have been eliminated, a taste for Harinam will never arise as long as inattentiveness remains present. Boy, there we go.
And later on, the verse where Srila Goswami is saying that the holy name may not be so sweet at first, but by chanting every day attentively and carefully.
That's right. Yes. Kintvadharad anudinam. Daily, every day, with adara, with great respect and honor for the holy name. Anudinam kalasaiva jushta. So, again, I'm just going to read that. One cannot perform Hari Bhajan at all until one is free of these 3 types of inattentiveness. Although all other types of aparads may have been eliminated, a taste for Harinam will never arise as long as inattentiveness remains present. If from the very beginning of bhajan, one possesses an enthusiasm that never slackens, then indifference, laziness, and distraction will never arise in one's practice of Nam Bhajan. Utsaha, or enthusiasm, is therefore helpful in the performance of all types of bhajan. So, enthusiasm. Is that clear? Is that clear? The need for enthusiasm? He says even from the very beginning of bhajan, if one possesses an enthusiasm that never slackens, then those 3 types of pramad, yes. Pramad, inattentiveness. Those 3 types of inattentiveness, they'll never arise in one's practice of Nam Bhajan. So we have to work on that. Utsaha, or enthusiasm, is therefore very helpful in the performance of all types of bhajan. Now we come to the last part of this section. Nishta gradually arises only through the enthusiastic performance of bhajan kriya. Otherwise not. When one's performance of bhajana kriya is full of enthusiasm, then one's irresolute disposition, that anishtita, unsteady, irresolute, right? That disposition is removed. When your performance of bhajan kriya is full of enthusiasm, then that irresolute disposition is removed. And the stage of nishta is quickly achieved. So Srila Rupa Goswami has mentioned, and now he quotes Ado Shraddha Tatak sadhu sangha ta bhajana kriya. This is the first verse where Rupa Goswami is listing all the stages from Shraddha all the way up to prema. But he says, Ado Shraddha. In the beginning there is Shraddha. Tatak sadhu sangha, then sadhu sangha. Ata bhajana kriya, then bhajana kriya. Tato anartha nivritti syat. Then anartha nivritti. Tato nishta ruchistata. Nishta, then ruchi. This means that the eligibility to perform bhajan, it arises upon the awakening of faith, Shraddha. And upon the arousal of this eligibility, one obtains the association of saintly persons, sadhu sangha, by which one begins to execute the activities of bhajan, bhajana kriya. In the beginning, bhajan is not performed with nishta, because various types of unwanted desires in the heart that impede one's progress in bhakti, these anarthas, they continuously crush the heart. So in the beginning, bhajan is not performed with nishta. Why? Because of these various types of unwanted desires in the heart that impedes one's progress in bhakti, these anarthas, and they continuously crush the heart. But performing bhajan with enthusiasm vanquishes all anarthas. So the last little section here, very small paragraph, says, enthusiasm is the very life of Shraddha. The word Shraddha certainly means faith, but utsaha is the very life of Shraddha. Yes, Shraddha means faith, but utsaha, enthusiasm, is the life of that faith. Faith without enthusiasm is meaningless. Many people think they have faith in the Supreme Lord, but because they do not possess enthusiasm, their faith is impotent. For this reason, due to a lack of sadhu sangha, they are unable to perform bhajan. There we go. Very clear, isn't it? Yeah?
Impotent faith.
Impotent faith. Impotent, it can't produce what? It can't produce the sadhu sangha, bhajana kriya, anartha nivritti nishta. It's impotent faith, right? Yes. Because why? Why is it impotent? They don't possess enthusiasm. How important is enthusiasm? Remember how enthusiastic we were in that early period?
Yeah.
Right? And of course, some of it was utsahamai, like we discussed about the child going to school and so forth. But we're still here. And we can remember in our life so many periods of dipping down and also rising up and having enthusiasm and sadhu sangha and all of that. So everybody gets the reward. Krishna's in the heart when he sees that enthusiasm is there. This person wants to attain me. This person wants to become my eternal servant. I'll help him. Just like we heard, Krishna comes and gets seated in the heart.
So I guess that starts with waking up in the morning and starting our bhajan, with enthusiasm.
That's right.
Not like, well, I think I'll sleep for another hour and do it later. That's not enthusiasm.
Yeah. Well, there's so many symptoms of enthusiasm, but one sure and certain symptom is that, as we just heard, these three different types of what?
There's indifference.
Yes. And what are they three different types of?
Of inattentiveness.
That's right, inattentiveness. So, if a person strives always to perform their Harinam bhajan with that enthusiasm and that adara, that giving so much honor to the chanting the holy name, then everything will happen. But if a person completely remains always very inattentive, they will not progress. It will take a long, long time. Yeah, they may still go on chanting, but we'll have to follow the instructions of Namacharya Haridas Thakur. How to chant without inattentiveness. That whole Harinam Chintamani book is also a very great jewel. Chintamani. Harinam Chintamani.
What does Srila Rupa Goswami mean when he says to chant carefully?
Attentively. That's careful. It means attentive. Carefully. We have to chant in the mood of the Sikshastakam. The Sikshastakam is actually the complete instruction from beginning to end. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was given. We also have the commentaries on those 8 verses, and we also have Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Bhajan Rahasya book, which really goes into depth. The whole process of bhajan is there. So we'll have to avail of these treasures, not ignore them. Our human form of life, well, especially us sitting here, it's coming to an end pretty darn soon. Okay? We don't know when. But whatever time we have remaining, we have to generate that determination, enthusiasm. This verse is so important. And what we're going to be hearing on all of these 6 items. So now this chapter, with enthusiasm, utsaha, it is now completed, his commentary on that, and then tomorrow we will go to the 2nd item, nishchayad, firm determination, So we'll complete here and chant the holy names for a couple of minutes and take some Krishna Prasadam and then continue our bhajan. Bhajan is meant to be 24 hours. Not that we're, letting up. We clocked in, we clock out. Bhajan is not like that. Bhajan means 24 hours. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaur Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol Shri Upadeshamritam Ki Jai Shri Rupa Goswami Pada Ki Jai Srila Sachidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Om Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namah Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Dandavat Pranams all Vaishnavas and Vaishnavi Vrinda. And to our listeners on the internet, good night. See you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.